It says I'm live. This is Tuesday, November 8th at almost 11 p.m. I've seen in this election put up in Maryland should never have been put up. But the voters vote for the person with the most TV ads, the most other ads, instead of voting for what they stand for. The Democrats don't say anything because they know they outnumber Republicans 2 or 3 or 4 to 1, depending on which area of Maryland you're talking about. But we get the same old, same old. How can these candidates keep getting reelected when they keep screwing us? Whether they're Republican or Democrat. Rain tax, flush tax, toll tax, phone tax, electric tax, gas tax, casinos, more scratch offs, betting on your phone, legalizing drugs. When are we going to bring back where if you want a tomato plant in your yard, you can have one? Most of the area I live in around Columbia, they don't allow any flowers. And guess what? Tomatoes have flowers on them to make the tomatoes. Most vegetables have flower or flowering plants. Illegal in most of these community associations around here. And to put an American flag up is ridiculous. And to promote CRT, woke, and equity is a racist as hell. But we keep voting the same people back in, or voting new people that have brain damage, heart attacks, strokes, can't put two words together, all up and down the chain from the lowest office to the highest office. Outright liars, hypocrites. I just paid $2,200 for oil 2 weeks ago. That May of 21 would have cost me a little under $800. And they said oil only went up 30%. That's more like 300%. And it's going to go skyrocketing more. I won't be able to afford oil next year because we're spending millions of dollars on solar and wind, which are destructive to our environment, as nuclear is, and coal and petroleum is. But you got to spend millions on solar to produce thousands of dollars of electricity that coal would have produced for that. Oh, we saved $4,500. It only cost us $10 million to install the solar panels that go bad in 10 to 15 years. And if there's a big hailstorm, they go bad very quickly. And then the lithium batteries are dangerous to our environment. But we need all things lithium. Still burning down houses. Cars still catching on fire from lithium batteries. And to dispose of them is like disposing of nuclear waste. When are we going to wake up and get politicians that will be caring about us, the people, the working class, the retirees, the veterans, instead of supporting billionaires and China? China makes most of our lithium, or owns most of the lithium in the world, especially since we left Afghanistan. They took over the lithium reserves there, which is one of the largest in the world. When are we going to start caring about America and easing all this pressure on us as working class people, giving us our freedoms back, giving our rights back, instead of a few liberal busybodies that run these community associations, these homeowners associations, these condo associations. If you want to put an American flag up on July 4th, you should. Or a Christian flag or Episcopal flag or any other flag to represent you who you are. How long is it in the Nazi flag? A symbol of hate. But our American flag's a symbol of hate now. We've done more good for the people of the world than any other country in the world history. Our Constitution was written in a way that it wasn't racist, bigoted, or biased against anything or anybody or any religion. But the courts couldn't interpret it. Our Bill of Rights was supposed to guarantee all of our rights, but law after law has taken them away. And our court systems are so outrageously expensive that 90% of the American public can't afford a decent lawyer. And even if you have a decent lawyer, they're scared to death of losing their license. Where the prosecutors and the judges will never lose their license. Nothing can ever happen to them because they're 100% protected civilly and criminally for whatever they do in court. When are we going to take away the immunity of our legislative body down in Washington, where as long as they're in Congress, they can lie like hell? We have evidence of Russian collusion with Trump while they're down in secret meetings with the CIA, Homeland Security, NSA, saying we can't find anything. There's no evidence of Russian collusion for the 2016 election. But all these Democrats get up in front of the news media, as long as they're on Congress property, they're allowed to lie to you. But the Republicans do it too. When are we going to get a party for the people, by the people, and for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, instead of the same old, same old? Our big cities are run by Democrats. Baltimore here has been completely controlled for over a half a century by Democrats, which has let it down into a deep hole. And all they keep saying is, re-elect me. We're still working on the problem. And we need more money, more taxes to solve the problem. By voting them in, shorter work, 8 years in office to get retirement now. Government officials should never get retirement. Maybe a 401k while they're there. But they should be very limited in their service as elected officials to maybe 10 or 15 years in their total life. That's what our government was set up to be. Farmers, business owners to come in and be a congressman for 2 years or a senator for 6 and then go back and work their farm or run their business again. Not lifetime politicians all about power and money. And it seems like the American public is so easily brainwashed into thinking we're helping the environment, helping you and me. That is ridiculous. The Republicans are just as big of liars as the Democrats. And the American public knows this. But they keep voting for the same people back in office over and over and over again. Whether it's Republican or Democrat, depending on what state they're in and what city they're in. And they get the same old shit. More statutes, more laws, more regulations, because elected officials are supposed to do that, aren't they? When you elect them, is to go in and keep controlling us more and more. No, they're supposed to be in there to help us survive under our Constitution. We the people, for the people, by the people. All people are created equal. We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They should go in there and strike most of the statutes, most of the laws, most of the regulations. They're just, you can't pass a law for one person just because they found a hole in the law and get away with something. And keep passing laws and naming them after people like Jessica's law or this law or that law. It's ridiculous. We have no freedom left in America. And by the looks of this election, the same old is going to keep coming at us, especially with this newest thing, climate change. When are we going to freeze to death? When are we going to starve to death? When are we all going to die from the flu? When are we going to be blown up by nuclear war? It's been one thing after another. From we're going to freeze to overpopulation, starve, to warming, we're all going to cook to death, to climate change now. And the American public keeps going along with it because the rich know how to control us, our minds. They control our media. They control our movies. That a child knows that they want to be a girl or a boy and have a sex change by the time they're preteen or teen. Did you know what you wanted to be before you were 25 or 35 or 45? We all change in life constantly, especially growing up as a young kid. We see a fireman, we want to be a fireman. We see a police officer, we want to be a police officer. Our father was in the army, we want to be in the army. This country is so messed up now because people won't open their eyes. They believe the news media, the right and the left. They don't look at the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and what it actually stands for in black and white. There's no shades of gray in the middle. It's in black and white. And 99% of it is good. In fact, even the part that only landowners can vote kind of makes me start thinking that that was a good part of it. That you have money in the game because you own property in America. You actually own something here that gives you a right to vote. But they thought the Constitution wouldn't even let women vote until the early 1900s. I like the part where the federal government couldn't collect taxes from us. They had to collect taxes from the state. So the states controlled the federal government, not the federal government controlling the state. I like the part of private ownership of property. The Supreme Court says as long as they couldn't take it from a poor person that couldn't afford the property tax, they approved property taxes to pay for public services. And now millions of properties later that they've taken from elderly people or somebody that got unemployed for 6 months and couldn't pay their property tax and sell it at auction for property tax. Totally goes against the Supreme Court ruling in the early 1900s. Our country has been going downhill for years. I stopped watching half of my shows this year that I used to watch for several years. When they start getting gay people in there kissing, even heterosexuals in bed, pretending like they're making love and stuff. Sex, politics, and pushing of stuff on us is not what the movies are supposed to do. It's supposed to be for entertainment, not pushing a political right or left idea into your brain that it's normal when it usually isn't. Maryland has gone so far down since I've lived here most of my life, in and out of DC a lot though when I was younger, um, where they pushed drinking. Even during COVID, the bars and the liquor stores were all open because they got tax revenue. The casinos were basically open because they wanted to tax casino, pushing gambling. Now they're pushing it on your phone, pushing drugs because of tax revenues, pushing tax on this and that to keep stealing the money from the economy. Our rich laying off American workers because they can get the product made in China, India, or some foreign country for a quarter of the price and have it shipped here. It's not the same quality usually, it's a lot cheaper, but they don't care because the faster it falls apart, the faster you have to replace it and the more money they can make off of you. When did we go to our government and our business leaders so greedy? Where CEOs used to make 10%, 10 times what the average worker made. And now it's 1,000 times more than the average worker in their place makes. You know, we have to stop this stuff. But how? If the American public won't wake up. The Democrats say if you vote Republican, we're not going to have a democracy. The Republicans say if you vote Democrat, we're not going to have a Bill of Rights or Constitution anymore. We're going to be a dictatorship, communist. Either side is bad. Back in 92, I knew this. I still voted Republican most of the time, but a man came along as Perot, Ross Perot. I campaigned at a couple of campaign places for him, holding signs and waving signs. I didn't donate to him though, but he was starting a third party to compete with the Republicans and Democrats. And it was a great party for the people. But then when he lost the presidency, he couldn't give a damn about the party. He was a hypocrite. All he wanted to do was be president, pretending like he was starting a third party and getting millions of people to follow him. He was a good speaker, a good persuader. But was he really for the people? No. He could care less about the people. He just wanted to be president, pretending to start a Green Party that was for the people, by them. And I supported his ass like an idiot because I believed him. I've opened my eyes so much now. In fact, half my ballot that I voted this time, I wrote in where it says write in, nobody. I voted a half a dozen times, nobody. Out of about a dozen offices I could vote for. I voted nobody. Because I didn't like the Republican, and I sure as hell didn't like all the Democrats that was mostly running unopposed. Because who's going to get their whole history looked at? All of the criticism, all the lies, all the fraud in elections, calling you everything. Like Andy Harris meeting with a Nazi. Was a congressman. He had to meet with Nazis, communists, socialists, Democrats, and Black Power people. he didn't have to do what they asked him to do. But as a congressperson, you got to meet with all your constituents, whether you approve of what they stand for or not, or you're not a congressman. You can't choose that I only meet with Catholics, white Catholics. You got to meet everybody and hear them out. Because you're elected for the people, not for a social group of people. I'm glad Andy Harris is winning because that woman opponent lied like hell, falsified ads and everything else. But that's normal in elections, to try to defame your opponent, especially by the Democratic Party. I feel sorry that William Newton didn't win. He's lost by a landslide with only 25% of the vote. He only got 22% of the actual votes now. And Ben Brooks got 78%. That's terrible. Ben Brooks is a status quo Democrat. Do you think it's hard now to go shopping, to buy gas for your car, or to heat your house? Wait until everything's Democrat in Maryland, including the governor now. Wes Moore is predicted to be a landslide winner. We don't have any checks and balances anymore in our legislative body or attorney general, etc. It's all going to be Democrat, except for a few lone Republicans that do not have a voice because they're so overwhelmed and outnumbered. We need checks and balances. The American public has been hoodwinked so much by our news, our movies, and our politicians on both sides that they don't know the person they're voting for. They just vote Democrat to save our democracy, or vote Republican that we don't become communists. While all the time we're moving to more and more control over us and less freedoms. The only people that have freedoms now are the criminals. Even the squeegee washers have a cooperative to fight whether they can squeege or not, and we're going to pay them $350 a week to not squeegee if they promise not to squeegee. Next will be murderers will say, I want to murder this person. Here's a picture of him. I'm right here to murder him. Are you going to give me $10,000 for not murdering him? Okay, that sounds good. One less murder. We got to bring back law and order. And we got to bring back our freedoms. But who do you vote for? I have a hard time, and I'm in the middle of the game. I run for office. And I'm with these politicians on both sides. And I talk to them. And most of them as corrupt as ever. They're career politicians. That's all they know how to do, is how to lie, sham you into voting for them, get your hard-earned money so they can throw it away on signs or advertising to lie to you even more. And we keep getting them back into office. Especially a lot of them in Washington that hate our government, hate our system, hate our democracy. And a lot of them are immigrants. Why in the hell don't they go home if we're so bad? They came here for the freedom, for the justice, for our Constitution, and then they come here and get elected as Congress or Senate or mayors or governors and try to tear it down. Why? We were looked up in the world for most of our history. And that's why millions wanted to come here. Now millions want to come here because of free health care, medical assistance, food stamps, welfare, free housing. We can't give 60% of Americans free everything. And to pay criminals for not being criminals, now we can't keep just printing money. We can't keep throwing money away on stuff that most scientists prove there's no such thing as climate change unless you live in Maryland. Then we have 4 different climates a year. And, oh, this is caused by climate change, the 100-year flood. Well, wait a minute, didn't it happen 100 years ago too? And 200 years ago and 300 years ago? But now we have all this media to tell you about it. And everything's climate change now, which is a falsity. Biden's going to destroy all electric plants working on coal. That's about 70% of our country's electricity. You got to open your eyes and look. There's 4,000 acres on a farm in California of solar panels, gigantic ones. And it can't even power the New York subway. Just the New York subway, not New York City. Just the subway, 4,000 acres of solar panels. The earth ain't big enough. 25,000 miles around it. Full of solar panels just to power half of our country. Windmills don't work. And both of them are hazardous waste when they go bad every few years. The lithium batteries to back up the electricity stored from them during the day or during the wind is extremely deadly to all environment. Just like Agent Orange was. Just like the atomic bomb was in Japan or the Midwest. Just like nuclear waste is. We're taking one poison and selling it to replace another poison. And screwing ourselves in the process. Biden tells the oil companies to produce more. But he also says you're not going to be in business in 5 years. We're destroying all petroleum and coal in America. So would you invest in new pipelines, new refineries, new drilling, or paying for leases on land or offshores? If you know you're going to be out of business in 5 or 10 years? No. Do you think inflation is not caused by printing money? If you have $1 in this hand and you say, poof, I now got $3 in this hand. Well, wait a minute. What used to cost $1 now costs $3 because we made $2 more to hold, printed more money. Just like we need to pay workers $15 an hour instead of $10 an hour. And then they yelled at McDonald's $5 to $10 for a hamburger. What the hell? They used to be $2 and $3. Now they're $6, $8, and $9. We got to tax corporations. Make them pay their fair share of tax. Well, wait a minute. If they make $10,000 a year profit, which is little that's a small business, and pay $1,000 a year in tax, and then all of a sudden the tax goes to $5,000 a year, they're only making half as much money, and they don't like that. So they're going to up the prices of their goods and services to cover that additional tax they got to pay. That causes inflation. Businesses just pass on the taxes to you and me. When are we going to educate our people? The Democrats in all of our major cities, where all the kids are failing across this country, want to keep the population dumb so they can tell them stuff that's not true and they'll believe it. Because a politician said it, it's got to be true. That 1,000 scientists agree with them. When there's 10,000 that don't agree, but they don't tell you that. I'm stunned about this election. I was thinking of not even voting this election. Because what difference does it make? Most of the population just votes for the same people back into office. They keep saying the same lies to you to get them reelected. And keep saying if we had more money, the schools would be better. If we had more money, the roads would be better. If we had more money, we could make life for you more better. While they throw billions of dollars a year away, trillions of dollars a year away on stupid stuff, like free abortions for everybody, free sex changes for everybody, welfare for half the population, Section 8 housing, and move all the jobs overseas so there's not any decent paying jobs of making cars, making boats, putting the stuff together in our factories. We don't want factories. They pollute. But we make more profit if we go to China and India, which are the two leading polluting countries in the world. But we won't put any kind of EPA on them. I've been for 20 years saying that federal law should state that we will not let any company here import any items from from factories in the world that pollute. They have to have basic EPA standards. Even Mexico pollutes like hell because they have hardly an EPA law. That's why our car manufacturers moved there, and a lot of our appliance and other goods are moving to Mexico for the last 30 years because they don't have the EPA. They save tens of thousands of dollars from abiding by all those scrubbers and filters and everything else to clean the water, clean the air, and everything else from their factories that they don't have to have in Mexico. And that pollution, what goes around comes around. We're polluted as hell from China and India and Mexico, all across this country because the air circles the world constantly. And the microscopic particles of the pollution is falling to earth every time it rains, polluting our ground, polluting our water, polluting our food supply, polluting us with cancers and diseases. But that's what I think about our elections and the people that vote. But what candidate to vote for, I can't really tell you, and I'm with them. All I see is a bunch of liars and hypocrites, most of the candidates. And even the ones that I thought was good, I found out were the biggest liars. Did even hoodwink me and made me believe that they were good people. I still believe Will Newton would have been best for Senate 10 here in Maryland, even though Ben Brooks was a Vietnam veteran too that served in Vietnam when I did. Because Ben Brooks is a so-so Democrat that wants to push their climate change and everything else on all of us, not realizing that it's all a lie by the billionaires of the world saying it's so. Just like COVID-19. Almost everything the CDC, the federal government, and the mayors and the governors did to us was illegal and was a lie. But do I think the 2020 election was stolen? No more than the Democrats thought that the 2016 election was stolen. We got to fix our election system. In the general election, no D's or no R's behind names. So you don't know who's running for what, unless you actually know them as a Democrat or a Republican or an Independent or Green Party or Constitution Party or whatever is on the ballot. One day of voting, ID required, 3 times more polling places so there's no long lines, and a national holiday to vote that one day in November every 2 years. And in the primary, no writing ballots, no pre-election voting, because that gives them time to alter the vote and change the vote totals. And I'm not blaming it on Democrats. I'm blaming it on all parties that will do anything they can to get their candidate elected. They can sneak a few extra votes in for this person or that voting person by running their ballot 3 or 4 times instead of just one time. So be it. Until we start prosecuting people from the highest with the crimes they commit, and until we start standing up against the little busybodies on every street corner called community associations or community organizers saying, this ain't right. I'm not listening to you. I have freedom in America. Then we're screwed as a generation of Americans. God bless you all, no matter what the name of your God is. And sit down at the dining room table and eat together. Very few families do that. Less than 1%, I think, right now. Actually sit down, put their electronics away, and talk and eat dinner. A homemade dinner anymore. Good night.